you see a future where we have Eve in the courtroom with the lawyers in trial?
I mean, I can't name the firm, but this is already happening. It's just too good. But the ability to get that information immediately is just so useful, right? If you hear something that sounds a little bit off, but your brain can't quite jar it, you can basically just give you what to dig into. And that's a game changer, right?
Start a fire over here, man. It's cold.
Speaking of starting a fire, we have the CEO and co-founder of Eve here with us live at NTL. We are very excited to get this on the books. You guys are everywhere right now. You are blowing up an incredibly powerful AI technology platform for legal practices. We have been waiting anxiously to sit down and talk to you, Jay. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited for you to be a guest on the John and Marc podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm going to take a shot. Jay Madheswaran.
We'll give you half credit.
Yes.
I saw you avoiding it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We're at National Trial Lawyers here in Miami. You guys have a giant booth downstairs. Why don't you tell us what Eve actually does? I want to hear your elevator pitch on the Eve platform.
Absolutely. So Eve is a leading AI platform for plaintiff lawyers to help with casework. So whether it is taking in a new potential new client, analyzing whether they're a good fit for your firm, and writing demands, doing medical chronologies, all the way to settlement and discovery request response in between, Eve helps you do all of that. And that's been part of our secret sauce is we do it purely with AI, and that was what took us so long to do it. We've been in business technically since 2020, and we launched our first product end of 23, early 24. And since then, it's been, thanks to our customers, like a rocket ship.
So how many firms are you working with across the nation right
We're
now?
working with close to 1,000 firms right now.
Wow.
It's a lot. All PI for the most part?
It's about, I would say, 60% PI and 40% labor and employment. So we actually have a good amount of labor and employment firms.
Did you find success first with PI firms or with labor and employment firms?
Yeah, so people ask this a lot, and we started counterintuitively with labor and employment, which is harder for technology. So what we wanted to get right early on was, does this work at all? Right? Like that is the hardest question to answer as a technology company, especially in a risk-averse place like legal, where if you mess up a fact, that is potential sanction. You know, that is, you lost that client an outcome they deserved. And the risks are just so high that we really wanted to see if all this tech that we built, getting really, really accurate results out of AI, could be utilized to help accelerate casework. So why we picked labor and employment was a larger percentage of labor and employment cases actually move to litigation. So vast majority do not settle pre-lit, unlike personal injury. And as a result, it forces us to go further into the case lifecycle and see more settlements end to end. And until we saw a couple of those happening with very little hallucination, if at all, that was kind of our aha moment. And then we moved to personal injury in about a month. And since coming to personal injury, things have been really exploding.
Does the platform layer on top of specific case management systems, or are you guys kind of agnostic?
We work with everyone that lets us work with them. So we
understand that answer.
So that's maybe the politically correct way of saying it. But honestly, one of the things that's really important to us is we innovate. You know, we're constantly releasing new products and features. Last year, we were kind of the first to market with a pure AI way of handling cases. Now we launched Eve 2.0, where Eve goes from prompting and kind of talking to it to Eve just doing the work for you more proactively. And we've been innovating out of all the challenges, right? So we understand your data is yours as a firm owner. If you think about your IP, it's your people, process, data, money, eventually. These are kind of what you have to grow with and what you have to kind of put a stamp on the world with. We found many clever ways of using technologies to help you get the most out of your data, right? Whether it's a CMS, whether it's a DMS, we work with customers on a Windows version of Prevail. That's a local database, and we found a way to work with that. So we will innovate our way out of any system you have.
If they allow them.
Yes. We were not throwing shade today.
I know who you are.
When it comes to AI generally, right? Not specific to the Eve platform, but generally in the legal process, either in PI or labor and employment, what are the areas that you believe are okay using AI for the most part? And what are the areas where you feel like need to be AI assisted, but still need to be human driven? And what are the areas that you feel need to be 100% human? So we're going to put things in 3 buckets. Give me a few things that fall in each.
This is quite tricky to handle because the number of legal tasks you do in a case is in the many hundreds, right? If not thousands. Everyone is writing slightly different briefs. Even demand letters don't look the same across states and different jurisdictions. So it's really hard for me to give you one answer. My general advice is to train yourself and your staff to work with AI such that you are still owning the output it comes out with. I think there's no getting around it. No matter of how good AI gets, eventually it's your name on the paper. If you're submitting a complaint to a court, it's your name that goes on it, not an AI's. So I think we're still at the point where vast majority of things require humans to review, but the amount of carefulness through which you review has been decreasing, right? So back in the day, even a year ago, chances were pretty high if you wrote anything longer than 2 pages with AI, there were going to be some mistakes. It's not a lot. It's less than, 300 words, 400 words? And nowadays, we're getting to the point where we're spitting out a medical chronology and overview that summarizes literally 20,000 pages of documents into a 20-page report, completely accurately. And that took a lot of effort. And the challenge there is it's not easy to sum up as one thing. To make that happen, you had to break down for those 20 pages, what were the issues related to OCR errors? Like how many people have these ancient medical records that, look like smudges. And those are also AI errors, right? Because if AI gets it wrong, then everything goes whack downstream. So we put a lot of effort into optimizing each one of those things. I would say today, if it's anything less than a page, AI is pretty safe to use, and you can review it very quickly and you can submit it. For anything longer than a couple of pages, you still need to utilize like a purpose-built platform like Eve or others to kind of get that output you want. But if you do, you actually can use it for things like medical overviews, chronologies, drafting all sorts of documents, and it's made for that.
How concerned are you with having client data within a platform that has the ability to kind of act on its own based off of inputs that are not necessarily going to be in your control, right? You now have medical records, you now have treatment histories, you now have social security numbers, you now have all this personal information. How concerned are you that that information is now within any system?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky question to answer because technically it's in a lot of systems already. It's in Dropbox, whatever DMS you use, it's in your CMS, it's in your email. The question it comes down to is like, what can you rely on AI to do autonomously for you and what can't you, right? Because now all that information's in there. You don't want it to go wild and start emailing people SSN numbers that shouldn't get it. And I think those are the things you want to put limitations on. At Eve, architecturally, we took a hard stance that we actually don't train on your data to train any central models. And the reason for that is the way these models still work is they're predicting the next word. So when you put client attorney confidential information in the training data set, there's actually a pretty decent risk that it hallucinates something real, right? Which isn't safe. So we've taken a hard stance. We don't do that. The second thing that we've done, which has been really resonating with clients, is Eve is a closed system, right? So it doesn't go out to the internet. It doesn't come back from the internet. Whatever you upload into Eve is what it sees, and it stays there. So that puts like a pretty good guardrail on Eve and how wild it can go. But eventually the controls that people still have are the eventual outputs in the form of documents, right? That's kind of what moves the case forward step by step. And pretty soon it'll start doing things like closing tasks for you on your CMS or going and collecting medical records for you. And those are kind of coming next.
Is a lot of the future of Eve building more agentic functionality to do things versus just document generation?
We are trying to figure out how to utilize technology to help you grow, manage your firm, grow and manage your firm. That's pretty much it, right? So, I was in a talk earlier today and I said, if I had a magic wand, I would delete the word AI from everyone's mind.
Yeah,
because I think
you probably were like, also if I have a microphone, everyone can hear me.
Yeah, for those that don't know, there was a power cut and, I had to yell.
And we are one of the only rooms with power. And for some reason, it seems like all of the air conditioning is pumping directly into this room. So
Sorry, I digress. Keep going, Jay.
So like basically technology is how we all should be viewing it. You know, what can this technology do now that it couldn't do before? Where are the right place to use it? Where are firms seeing the most value in terms of outcomes, right? And you have to drive from there. So some of the things that we do, you know, when you sign up with us as a client is we actually help you set your North Star metric. You know, do you want your North Star metric to be revenue per employee? Do you want it to be time on desk? Do you want it to be average time to settle a demand or average time to get the first demand ready? And these are all different metrics firms choose to shoot for that indirectly are proxies towards revenue, profitability, basically EBITDA metrics. And that is incredibly important because eventually you have to start developing, as an owner, developing an intuitive understanding of how to take those metrics, utilize technology, which is changing and very empowering on a rapid basis, and marry together your firm with it, which means how do you get your people to see the new technology, adopt it, change the process that need to be changed, and identify what are the right places to use it. Today, there's a lot of very obvious places, right? So the low-hanging fruit places are very simple, like extraction or drafting work. It's pretty much there for that today. A clever use case that I think a lot of people aren't doing, but firms that are doing it right now are seeing about 20 to 30% increased value of a case when they settle, is actually they ask themselves like, what would I do if I have 100 of me? What are some things you would be doing if you had the time? And this is adding so much value. An example of this is like one of our firms we work with, Jeffrey Glassman, he ended up using our auditor functionality to go audit automatically, you know, as though he was looking at every single case file, the thousands upon thousands of cases he had. And he found undiagnosed TBI in quite a few of them, right? And now these are things that, again, if you had some genius in your firm or firm knowledge you've incorporated over time, you relied on just happening in case review, roundtable meetings, or what have you. Now you can have that happening continuously every night, done for you. And TBI is just one example. It can literally be anything.
how did you, and you can use the Glassman example, or you can, you know, generalize this more, but how do you actually get that tribal knowledge into the system to be able to come to those conclusions semi-autonomously, right? Because you're saying you don't train on the data, but yet there has to be some training that's involved in order to come to those conclusions.
Yes and no. There's a lot of, I mean, this gets into the heart of how Eve builds its product stack. Ultimately, what we really focused on is also similar to what we advise to others, which is how do you operationally set yourself up? We operationally set ourselves up to execute on product velocity at a rapid pace. Because today, even software engineering has the same problem lawyers are dealing with, which is now AI can write software code. And they're having the same existential crisis I think, you know, a lot of the lawyers here have. And we're at the forefront of using it properly to give you a better, higher quality product. What we've learned is at the heart of it is actually evaluations. So how do you actually know if AI is doing a good job? And that's where we put a lot of effort, right? So to understand things like, you know, how do you know if your average client outcome is going to get higher? There's been a lot of math and different ways we've kind of broken down the problem into smaller subcomponent problems, which we can work on and train without any model training. And the reason for that is these days you get a lot without training a ChatGPT-like model. You can just prompt it. You can do fine-tuning, feature engineering. There's many ways of steering the model to do what you want it to do without training. And we kind of rely on those techniques.
So you can layer additional code and functionality on top of the AI model to achieve new tasks without creating a whole new one.
Exactly. And this is why we can move so fast, right? So we launched Voice AI for intake, and pretty soon Voice AI, because of the way we built the platform, that technology is going to be used throughout the case lifecycle. You know, now when you get a discovery request propounded on you and you're missing some information, that can just be a call, right? And the call is now smart enough to actually go understand and pull out all the information you'd wanted to do. And this is just, I think, some of the ways in which we're going to see technology affecting your firms going forward.
What is the dream scenario for the use of, I'm not going to say AI, for the use of technology?
Thank you.
What do you feel is like we've reached the limit, and this is where like everything else has to be done by humans. Where does that benchmark?
I think we ultimately have to play to our strengths. What I mean by that is, no matter what output AI comes with, if you just accept it, you left something on the table, right? Like, I don't think that's ever changing. Exceptions being really, really rote, dumb, repeatable things like pulling out name, date of birth, stuff like that. Like maybe that can go away. But if you're looking at a demand, for example, the best person in the firm would slice a demand in so many different ways. And that extra level of effort you used to put into just pulling information out of documents can now be put into making that demand even better, or that complaint even better. And we're seeing that already. Some of our firms, like a clever tactic they've been using is, because Eve has features to help you respond to discovery requests, it's technology, so it responds right away. They've actually been responding back to discovery the same day they get it, just to spook out defense. It's like, we knew you were going to ask this and we're ready. So like, these are some of the clever ways they're putting a lot of pressure back on defense to their benefit. Like they're settling faster. And I think those are just the beginning stages of how you use this extra time to actually advocate for your clients better. The depth of advocating for clients is immense. And the reason why I say that is, if you look at the evolution of accounting, or really any industry that has gone through similar evolution in the past, you've always utilized getting insights out of data and driving processes, technology changes as a result. And I think law firms are going down that same track. Today, a lot of this data is in tribal knowledge, right? So a senior attorney might know a lot. Like they understand, like, here's how I litigated it, here's all the experience I have at trial, here's how I would bake it in further in the case if I could. And this is just stuck in their head. Some have done a better job of taking that out. It might live in complaints they've written, it might live accidentally in different documents, but that information is lost and is stuck with the attorney. But now with technology, you can actually take that and teach a system how to think like that, right? And now you're going from operating on one case at a time to working collectively on making the system better and better. And that has, I think, an infinite level of depth to go, because eventually it's a competitive environment and clients are going to pick whoever advocates for them the best.
Do you see a future where we have Eve in the courtroom with the lawyers in trial?
I mean, I can't name the firm, but this is already happening, right? So because it's just too good, right? I mean, when defense comes back with 300 pages of really well prepped docs and like a team of 10 ready and willing helping at the trial, we have firms right now that actually do use Eve during like an active trial. They typically have someone else use Eve while they're doing it, but the ability to get that information immediately is just so useful, right? If you hear something that sounded a little bit off, but your brain can't quite jar it, Eve can basically just give you what to dig into. And that's a game changer, right?
Does it listen?
Not yet. Not yet. You have to feed it the information. The only place where it listens today is for people that don't have a RingCentral or some sort of call recording software for intake. We have a software that actually records the call for you and pumps it into Eve or your CMS or where have you. One
of my favorite hacks that Marc showed me is, we went to go visit a firm. He takes out his phone and he puts it on the table, and we use a tool called Wave AI. Yeah. Right? He turned it on and just sat there, and it recorded for like 2 or 3 hours our entire conversation. And it knew the different people, because at various times, like, we introduced ourselves to each other.
We put wireless mics on, so when we're like in the room with different people, it like catches all of our conversations.
It's great.
And then it just summarized the whole thing and gave us an action plan. And like, these are the things and like the timelines that were set. And that type of technology that allows you to have a conversation with another human and synthesize the aspects of that conversation that actually need to move on to do X or have something else happen. Like that to me is like incredible. It's infiltrating like personal relationships and like how you engage with people. Incredible technology. To do that in a courtroom would be insane.
I'm not saying who it was, but one of our good friends built a tool where when they were in court for a specific type of case, when the defense used like a certain example, it was listening and they'd pull up immediate case laws examples against it. And they'd be like, nope, and this one is right immediately, pull it up, like, and the defense is like, well, how did you?
It's all in here.
That's the future of where we're going. Like, we're raising the bar, and I think the bar can be continuously raised. I think that's the thing. It's just going to get incrementally harder to raise the bar, but that's where our time will go.
So are you going to allow your technology to go into the dark side, into the defense counsel's hands?
We have no plans to go to defense because I think right now we see a lot of benefit, and the challenge with AI is adoption eventually, right? So it's not just the technology, but obviously very important how accurate it is.
You got to implement it, you got to train people.
That's a non-trivial part of it. Yeah. So by focusing on plaintiffs, and also the other thing is, I think from a philosophical lens, like I'm more attracted to plaintiff work. Like it helps people, and there's something really nice about that. And on top of that, this is all underdog versus people with more money fight, which, you know, I come from a pretty poor family. So I think that also is like very motivating for me to work for. But what I found that's really important is the fact that we work around a case and we only get paid when we win the case is massively important for AI, because that's basically a business forcing function getting us to utilize AI technology, what have you, to create efficiencies where possible at the benefit of client outcomes.
Yep. You're just using the best tools available to increase your chances of winning.
Exactly. And that's beautiful. Yeah. Defense does not have that benefit. In fact, they have to be very quite careful how they roll out any improvements to efficiencies, call it. And that's an advantage we have right now. And we believe by doubling down even more on making plaintiffs incredibly successful, we have a chance to really flip the tables. And that's why we're launching intake. This doesn't have as much use in defense, right? Like you're not really intaking hundreds of new clients every day in defense. Now, once you intake something in defense, all the different workflows all the way to settlement can now be accelerated by the intelligence you've kind of built into Eve.
What is your feedback to people who say they don't want to talk to an AI agent? Even if it's like a doctor's office, right? And like the system's making the call to find out information, is someone treating, like getting information on what's happening there. Like, do you think that that's inevitably where we're going? Or is there the pushback actually going to
I think
go in the other
ship
direction?
has sailed, because like it's one of those things where once you start using it, it's very hard to go back. I mean, it sounds like a drug when I say it that way, but it's somewhat true, right? Like once you realized, oh, I don't have to spend all my time just chasing information, I get to work on things that actually could matter, right? Once that shift happens, it's really, really hard to go back. What I will say is, I mean, I ask this question a lot when I come to conferences, meet people, show of hands, how many people have used AI? It's remarkably different, John and Marc. Like last year, barely anyone has tried AI, right? Or very scared to try AI. This year, like literally today, I asked this question, what was it, like 100, 200 people? And pretty much everyone are at least using it in one function in their law firm, which is remarkable. Like that type of technology adoption has like never happened before. The ship has sailed. Now what we're getting into is questions around, hey, I bought said AI tool, I have X and Y, but I'm not seeing the impact, right? Like people say they're faster, but I don't really see the impact on a firm-wide basis or in my revenues or what have you. And I think that's the next level, which we're heading into now, which is how do you actually implement it? What are the use cases you go after? How do you see change? Positive change.
These lawyers, they're starting to use AI. We're at the conference. If you look at the platinum sponsors, wherever the highest amount, it's you guys, it's Even Up. There's a ton of Foundation AI. They're a little different than you guys. Bunch of different AI tools. How should a lawyer that's here go about evaluating which platform is the right one for them?
I try it out. That's the basics.
So do you have a try before you buy it program?
So that's actually one of the things we almost started in the AI space. Like when we started, there was no concept of try, because most AI products back then were actually people pretending to be AI, right? Because we actually can respond in 5 minutes. We're like, yeah, go try it. Like nothing like seeing it work on your own case file to tell you if it's going to work or not. And we also don't want to sell a product that you're not going to use or not going to get value from. Like that's something we've been working for years building, and that's not fun to us either. So we actually do have a try before you buy policy.
Look at that.
Yep.
Well, if you got to implement it too. I'm going to double down and go a little deeper. Besides just you guys, how should they evaluate which platform is best? There's 3 or 4 you guys leading the charge here on the space.
What's the differentiator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, I don't know the difference. I've interviewed many of the CEOs at this point. You guys all are very smart and very kind, and the products look great. And I know most of the salespeople. So what's the differentiator for you all? What are things they should consider when going through these evaluations?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, we're still the only provider, I think on one of the large providers that still is pure AI. And the reason why that's important is eventually you still have to review the documents at the end of the day anyway. So we'd rather teach your firm and give them tools for how do you do that quickly, effectively, and then force ourselves to make AI as good as possibly can. So compared to everyone else, we actually spend almost all our money on AI, which is why like it's better, right? Second thing is velocity. So one of the things that we took in is the eval methodology I kind of talked to you about earlier before. We put a lot of effort into launching features as quickly as possible, because one of the challenges we see happening is AI is changing so rapidly, no one can keep up with it. Like what happened last week on AI? Who knows?
Personal intelligence with Google.
Oh, okay, nice.
Right.
Nice. Yep.
Gmail, calendar, photos, it integrates into Nest. You can have it like set on a daily basis, give you a summary of like all the things that your Nest camera caught. Like the Google ecosystem, you probably don't know this, but we've been talking about this for the past year. Like Gemini is growing at a very fast rate, and ChatGPT, its market share is declining. And that is because Google is going to win the whole AI race. They have the ecosystem already. They have the adoption.
This is our strong opinion.
Yes.
We're all in on Gemini.
I think Google has a lot of things going for them.
Yep.
They have the money, they have the talent, they have the data,
the user adoption.
They have its chips as well, which is unique, and the user adoption. But personally, like I hope for competition. Like I think, that's good for all of us. If we have competition, it forces all of us to make better products. And I think there's still a shot. I think, we work closely with all three teams, of course, and they're all doing different things. And I think they're going to have ways they specialize to.
When you say three, you're like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic?
Yeah, see, people forget Anthropic, but they're sneakily one of the, I think, better ones in the legal space.
The differentiator is between the LLMs. It's going to become more apparent. Like Anthropic is moving more towards like coders, vibe coding, like being a platform for developers. Marc Lanier talks about how he uses Claude. And then
Claude seems to be very good at the written word.
Gemini seems to be like more of like the personal use platform, right? It's integrating like into your house. It's your Google Home devices. It's just all like their subscription now is Google Premium now includes your Nest subscription. It includes like the extra storage. So like they're forcing you into like their ecosystem. I don't know where OpenAI fits. Like OpenAI was ChatGPT was the sort of the first big player. And now I don't know what their differentiator is anymore.
The fun part I also see is like weird unlock you get from these different tools. For example, with Claude, you talked about Claude Code. We see actually weirdly some of our law firms' marketing teams use Claude Code. And here's what they do with it, right? So if you ever have, let's say you want to make a landing page for a mass tort case of some kind, or just a landing page in general to attract some particular segment of your marketing dollars to that page. Old days, maybe you hired a contractor, maybe you set up Webflow or something similar to go do it yourself. But now you can actually just tell Claude Code, hey, make this website for me. It does a pretty good job.
Was it spit out like an HTML file, a CSS file?
It spits out everything.
It'll write the JavaScript.
It writes the JavaScript, and you can tell it, go make this animation for me if you wanted to. You can add a web form to it to collect. And these are ways in which the law firm owners are using AI in unexpected ways, right? Like you can actually use it today, not just Eve, but just technology overall, to do things in your different functions to grow that you just couldn't do before. Like who would have thought you could put an engineer next to a marketer and that'd be cost effective? Like that just doesn't make sense. But now it does. And because that does, maybe your marketing automation looks different. Maybe your personalization looks different. Maybe your ad targeting looks different. For example, one of the successful cases of AI has been Bayer, the medical company, actually like predicts outbreaks before they happen using AI and aggressively spends marketing dollars there when it's cheap to go get mind share, right? So we have similar things happening with like property and casualty cases where potentially you could see them coming beforehand. And these are all different ways in which I anticipate AI to be used for the entrepreneurial law firms out there, even today.
We're starting to notice a very clear split between those who use AI, which is, you said, like, everybody raise your hand who uses AI, right? Like, pretty much everyone uses AI right now, and those who like are power users who actually know how to harness the power of what is truly at their fingertips, right? There's a big difference between opening up Gemini and like asking it a question and it giving you like a response from its like grounding versus like leveraging agentic capabilities and setting up an MCP to like some other platform and like doing all this stuff, coding things for you, building landing pages. Like that, I think, is going to happen this year because AI usage is going to, or if it hasn't already become so commonplace, that AI as a skill set, as a trained skill set, is, I think, where we are going as just an overall workforce and like in the business world, not just even in law firms.
John and I have been talking about this. I think we've mentioned it at least once today. We have this dangerous thing we do now where we come up with an idea. We like brainstorm how we're going to do it using, like, I use Gemini as like asking questions, and then I start vibe coding it out, and then I get stuck. And then we have a developer that all she does is work on our projects, and I just throw over the fence. I go, figure it out. I'm like, I got 80% of the way there, make it work. And then she just spends a day and gets it working. And something that would have taken us like a month to build, the next day she has it ready for me to do.
Oh man. So I'll share an interesting stat with you guys on our own usage data that I think you'll find interesting and aligned with this theme, which is if you look at the engaged cohort, so like let's take the top 10% of users, right, in a firm, and compare them to the non-engaged ones, people that use AI for just one task or two tasks, and they've been trained to use it, like you said, like go, prompt Gemini. Guess what the difference in usage is between the two cohorts?
In usage?
Usage.
How am I answering this? X percentage, a percentage?
You can say percentage, you can do times, whatever, whatever you want.
I would say, I mean, if we're talking like one end of the spectrum versus the other end of the spectrum, it's got to be like 10 to 20 times.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess.
You nailed it. So it's on average, it's about 10 times. 10 times more for.
I was gonna say 100%.
That's very accurate.
I was like, how do we answer this question? Pass, fail.
But isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So what you said is very true. Like what we're seeing are these patterns of, for some people it clicks and they realize this is what it's good at, this is what it's bad at, here's how to use it to actually change something. And some that still need to be kind of told and coached what to do. And I think we're going through this phase for our workforce, and everyone really is learning how to use these tools properly. The really clever things we've seen firms do is they all handle it differently to get this adoption going. One of our firms, actually Jeffrey Glassman, since we'd mentioned him before.
Hey, Jeffrey, we'd love to have you on the pod to talk about how you use
Yeah, I think it's worth it.
If you're available.
Not to pick on him too much, but he did something quite risky with adoption, which is he gave his most risk-averse, the guys that said no to every technology, he was the one that had access to Eve first.
Yeah.
And he had to prove it. And this is the guy that, crashes down even the junior attorney's demands. Like he's super hard to everyone. And he loved Eve.
Yeah.
And then suddenly that made adoption in that firm like blow up, right? And others have taken a very different approach, which is they hire almost an evangelist. So you have, typically this would be kind of like your CIO person, but someone champions, they understand technology, they understand how all your different functions work, and they're just constantly pushing for change, right? And at some point, it starts clicking in the organization. It's like, oh, okay, this is what happens. There's all sorts of clever tricks that people have come up with. One of the firms we work with, they actually set a goal company-wide for their firm that is, I want everyone to make 100K or above this year, right? Which is an interesting goal. And they're using that to kind of really reimagine all their processes with AI. And they're doing things that, we haven't really seen before. All of that is just super fascinating to me.
Besides Jeffrey Glassman, which apparently you're doing a great job.
Good job, Jeff.
Which firms are using Eve the best or the most right now? Like top 3.
Mike Moore's law firm, they're very active users, using it quite a bit.
Yep.
And I think Dudley DeBoisier uses
also
it quite a
two
bit.
very not surprising names.
They're quite forward-thinking and innovative. I think Dudley also, they have a lot of different law firms as well. And that's a good testament, and I think pressure test to the system ourselves. So is it actually easy to use and adopt across different cultures, different teams? One labor and employment firm, two of them a shout out, like Frontier Law, which is one where he actually made his own software to work alongside Eve to reimagine client comms. So not only is he a firm owner that reimagined his whole practice with Eve, but he's also making another tool to kind of reimagine client comms and work alongside Eve to basically take the whole thing for the very first time a client gets touched anywhere at all to settlement.
When you're looking at pricing for the firms, the traditional SaaS model is like on a per user basis, right? But with AI, it's very token based. How do you price it? You don't have to talk about what the price actually is, but like there's this big shift, right? From like
I've seen it
the old SaaS
per
models
document or per demand, or I've seen seen some wild pricing models out there.
We keep things simple and we price per case. So we actually, for the most part, don't change it drastically for all these different criterias, and we just take the hit on it. And the main reason is we believe it should be indirectly related to value, right? Eventually, we want to be driving value to you, right? Either it's time saved or more likely like increased settlement rates and settlement dollars. We want to drive that value to you. And eventually we want to get really good understanding what is the type of work that is required to drive that value. And eventually that amount is going to be a well-known amount. So this is some of the ways in which why we've been AI focused and why we've raised so much money has helped us is
you guys have raised a lot of money.
we have raised a lot of money.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's helped us because we can actually pass that along to you guys. And together honestly, you're doing a lot as well. You're putting your sweat equity in reimagining how to run your law firm with Eve. And we want to make that as easy as possible to you. And we found token usage to be incredibly unpredictable. Like for example, if you're dealing with a 10,000 page Medcron, that can cost $350 in tokens once, right? To run it once. You don't want to be dealing with that. Like you could easily just run into a situation where you're spending millions on tokens, and we want to be the kind of that safeguard for you.
Are the law firms passing the...
You were asking my question. Is it an expense that they add to the end of the case?
So I would say more than half are doing so.
Look at this, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. And many are actually doing that along with disclosures. So they disclose they use AI, and here's how I use AI, here's what I'm using it for. It gets you, I'll communicate the value to them, right? It gets them higher settlement rate, faster response times, faster time to settle.
Better outcomes.
And better outcomes in general. And people don't say no. This might change state to state. There might be some statewide changes, but in California, people are largely up for it. And in many other states as well, especially the younger generation, they would rather talk to an AI weirdly than a person. That's already happening. It's a bit scary. In some cases, it makes sense because we deal with labor and employment as well. Sometimes you run into cases where they're dealing with very sensitive things like sexual harassment or very personal things. They might not even feel comfortable talking to a person yet about. Maybe they never talked to anyone about it. Mm-hmm. They feel safer talking to AI because oddly, AI is better active listener than most people out there.
I'm scared for the next generation. Like all these skills that you develop over time, just interacting with people and like active listening, right? They're slowly going to go away.
I was watching a video and they were talking about the biggest issue that companies are having interviewing the newest generation of kids coming out of college, and they like ranked them. I forgot what it was, but the two biggest items during interviews is they're unable to maintain eye contact during a conversation on a remote interview. And the second one was they cover their camera up during a Zoom interview.
Like they don't, why? Like you're being interviewed for a job. Why would they cover their camera?
I agree. That was my thought as well. Skills you do not learn. They just are unable to they struggle with like intense face-to-face conversations that require eye contact.
Probably because like social media has become so polished where like you can record a reel or a story. If you don't like it, like, all right, I'm just going to do it again. Like you can't do that. And
quick question. Are you a robot?
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet.
Out of left field.
Yeah.
Are you a robot? Jay, this has been fantastic. Like loved having you on the podcast. I think we learned some stuff.
Learned a ton.
And it's great to always talk to technical founders who understand both the legal side and the technical side. For law firms who are watching this, who don't know what Eve is, how can people find out more about what your platform does?
Eve.legal. Go to it. And like I mentioned, you can demo it on your actual cases before you check it out. The second thing is our team has gotten pretty good at understanding how to take you through the AI transformation journey as well. So the more you tell them, typically they can give you pointers on what are the first places you should start. Things we've been learning over time across 1,000 law firms we work with. Use us to at least at minimum learn about what the initial places to do it should be.
Jay, this is a fantastic conversation. We know you're a busy man. We appreciate you taking the time of your schedule to meet with us. And I would love to sit down with you in like a year to see where the product's been and get an update.
Absolutely. Would love that. Thank you so much for having me on again, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.